Good afternoon, everyone. A very warm welcome on the behalf of Deccan Education Society's IMDR. My name is Ankita Yadav, member of Industry Institute Interface Committee. Today, I would like to request everyone to grab your notepads and get those filled with knowledge of word of wisdom. As a part of student development and establishing academic and corporate connect, IMDR continuously organizes guest lectures, seminar, webinar, and panel discussions. Today amongst us we have experts from industry on our panel to share with us their experience and knowledge on the topic of entrepreneurship and startup management. It's my pleasure to introduce the panelists with us. Mr. Vivek Arkere, Director, Team Global Logistics Private Limited, Mr. Anish Javri, Partner, Olympians Capital, Mr. Vikram Gupta, Founder and Managing Partner, EVA Capital Venture Advertiser Private Limited, Mr. Nitin Pangam, CEO, Mayflower Consulting, will be moderating the discussion. IMDR has been offering specialization in the form of dual specialization under the title of Major and Minor. The major specializations offered are marketing, finance, human resource, and operations and supply chain, and minor are business technology, system, international trade. In addition to this, IMDR will be offering new specializations that is business analytics, enterprises, entrepreneur and startup management for the batch 2020 and 2022. IMDR has initiated the launch of one of the most trending specializations among the aspiring management graduates, that is, entrepreneurship and startup management. The demand of entrepreneurship and startup management are quite different compared to those in regular corporate environment. Aspiring entrepreneurs need to develop skills ranging from setting up and managing business to funding as well as to managing growth. Hence, IMDR is organizing a panel discussion to help aspiring entrepreneurs get a well grounded view and real world knowledge of enterprising and life in a startup, which they need to create and develop a new enterprise with potential for growth. The foundational concept of entrepreneurship will help the aspiring entrepreneurs to explore the world of new business opportunities and to learn how the good idea can be turned into feasible business opportunities. The aim of the specialization is to develop an entrepreneurial mindset and own the skill one needs to develop new enterprise with potential for growth and funding, or to identify the pursue opportunity for growth within existing organization. Moving towards the introduction of the panelist, I feel honored to introduce Vivek Kele, sir. He is the founder of Team Global Logistics Private Limited. Sir is an economic, excuse me, ma'am, I'm very sorry, but there's a lot of disturbance. Sir is a graduate in economics from the prestigious Fergusson College, Pune, with a postgraduate in business management from IMDR. After working for 14 years, he started own business of logistics in year 2005 under the name of Team Global Logistics Private Limited. Team Global Logistics operates in different segments of logistics such as sea freight, air freight, coastal cargo, project cargo transportation, container freight stations, coastal forwarding, CFS operations. Today, the company has 18 offices in India, Bangladesh, and East Africa and employs strength of 800 people catering to logistic requirement of their customer global through its worldwide network of agents. He has been guest lecturer at CII Organization Seminar, Logistic Forum, Maritime Institute, and various Rotary clubs. He has been a speaker at a Indian Institute Summit 2016 hosted by Minister of Shipping, also at India Integrated Transportation and Logistics Summit 2017 hosted by Minister of Road Transport and Highway. He has held some important positions like Chairman of FILA, that is Federation of Indian Logistic Association 2018 and 20, President AMTO, that is Association of Multimodal Transportation Operations in India 2015 and 17. He is also member of IMC, Indian Merchant Chairman, Shipping and Transportation Committee 2017 and 19,
I think you
Currently,
can,
sir is
hello, excuse me, I'll just interrupt. I think you can move on to introducing the next panelist, please.
okay. Sure,
Sure.
sir. So we look
Thank you.
forward for your words and knowledge of wisdom.
Sure.
Thank you, sir. And now I would like to request my colleague Advait Likite to introduce the next panelist.
Sure.
Thank you, sir. Over to you, Likite.
Thank you so much, Ankita. Good afternoon, one and all present here. I am Advait Likhite from Industry Institute Interface Committee. It is an honor to introduce our next guest, Mr. Anish Zaveri sir, in this panel discussion on entrepreneurship, startup management, prospects, and challenges. Zaveri sir is a partner in Olympus Capital, which is Mumbai-based and early-stage venture capital firm. Sir was vice president in Kotak Securities, CLSA, which is Asia's leading capital market and investment group, Desner Kellingworth, ICICI Securities, and HSBC Securities. He was also Group CEO, Antique Finance, and currently partner in Olympus Capital. Some of the investments of Olympus Capital are BVG Group, Den Network, LocalBania.com, Grab.in, Ecom Express, OnlineRTI.com, Promthom Industry, and many more. Two notable big winners in their portfolio are Mr. Sameer Manchandra, who has startup Den Networks, which is India's leading digital cable operator, and Mr. Hanumantrao Gaikwad, founder of Bharat Vikas Group, commonly known as BVG. BVG is country's largest facility management company. I am proud that Zaveri sir is alumnus of IMDR, having passed out in year 1990-1992. We current IMDRites welcome our senior alumni of IMDR back to the institute. We all are eager to listen to your points in this panel discussion. Welcome, sir. Over to Kalyani for next introduction of our guest.
Thank you, everyone. Good afternoon, everybody. I, Kalyani Morankar, member of Industry Institute Interface Committee, welcome you all for today's panel discussion. Today, the third panelist amongst us is Mr. Vikram Gupta. Sir has completed his BTech in Chemical Engineering from IIT Delhi and has MBA degree in Strategy and Finance from Case Western Reserve University at Cleveland, USA. Mr. Gupta is the founder and managing partner of Ivy Cap Ventures, a 200 million US dollar venture capital fund that invests through the alumni ecosystem and that has portfolio of 30 companies. He has over 25 years of experience in private equity, business consulting, M&A strategy and operations in healthcare and life science, education, consumer goods and other industry. He has held a leadership position across various well-known companies in India and abroad. Prior to founding IVCAP, Mr. Gupta was the founding member at Piramal sponsored 100 million US dollar healthcare focused private equity fund that he conceptualized and raised in 2008 when the world markets were going through turmoil. Mr. Gupta worked in USA with IBM Business Consulting Services for over 4 years in strategy and planning, business development and project management across various assignments. He conceptualized and led IBM's healthcare and life science practices for clinical genomics. He also held senior positions with various well-known Indian companies. Mr. Gupta is the co-chairman of private equity and venture capital at Associate, and he is an active member of Indian Venture Capital Association and Confederation of Indian Industry, and he received Distinguished Alumnus Service Award from IIT Delhi in year 2020. Sir, we are grateful for your presence amongst us today, and we look forward to your words of experience and wisdom. Thank you, sir. Over to you, Alisha.
Thank you, Kalyani. Good afternoon, everyone. I am Alisha Lalani, the member of Junior Industry Institute Interface Committee. Our fourth esteemed panelist and the moderator of the program is Mr. Nitin Panta. Nitin sir is the CEO of Mayflower Consulting, a leading international trade and foreign investment advisor. He is also the director of Missouri State Investment and Trade in India. Additionally, he is a consultant to the World Bank and the World Economic Forum on sustainable investment and investment policy and promotion. Nitin sir has been a speaker at several trade and investment forums and has been invited by WC in Denver, St. Louis to conduct workshops associated with topic doing business in India. Furthermore, he has founded and headed two technology companies in data storage and digital procurement services, which were acquired by leading business groups in 1997 and 2001, respectively. Currently, he serves on the board of Flowin Solutions, a technology company. I am extremely proud to mention that Nitin Sir is an alumnus of IMDR, having passed out in 1992 with PGDM in Political Science, Business and International Relations. On a final note, sir, it is my immense pleasure to introduce you and welcome you back to IMDR. We are very grateful for your presence amongst us today. Thank you, and over to you, sir.
Thank you for those introductions. It's fantastic to be at IMDR, not physically, but with all of you virtually for the first time. And I must congratulate and applaud IMDR, Shikha Madam, and the rest of the faculty for conceiving this specialization in entrepreneurship and startup management. And I think the time is opportune. So, before I start, I must say that no discussion today is complete without taking cognizance of what's happening not only in our country, but across the globe on account of the pandemic. And sometimes they say that, big challenges offer opportunities. And I am of the belief that this pandemic will offer opportunities to entrepreneurs and to people who are able to move to the cliched term, the new normal. So I want to begin by saying that when I was having discussions with Anish, Vivek, and Vikram prior to this, event, one of the themes that came up strongly was that, the post-pandemic business world would look a bit different or a lot different than, it looks right now. And my colleagues mentioned that the levers of competition are changing rapidly. So, the earlier competitive levers of access to capital or land or machinery are rapidly being changed by, the ability to work in the virtual world. So cross-border teams that are able to collaborate effectively using technology as the biggest lever are probably likely to be ahead of their competition in the newer scheme of things. And this is a great leveler, because those of you who think that they might compete with the incumbents in the industry probably need to realize that you are going to be the disruptors, or you are going to be the competitors that the incumbents need to kind of factor in. So very recently, I was interacting with a Bangalore-based startup called Zetworks, and I believe their last round of funding that they had was about 120 million US dollars, which is astronomical. But what they do is basically, if anyone across the world wants a product to be designed or manufactured in the emerging countries like India, Bangladesh, Vietnam, this platform facilitates, product design, prototype development, and manufacturing without the client in the developed world moving anywhere. To me, it's a brilliant concept, and this company is raked in revenues of 45 million US dollars in a matter of 3 years. And this is testament to the fact that, collaboration across borders using virtual technology is a huge lever, and post-COVID, this would only enhance. I also want to say that, a lot of people talk about, rural and semi-urban India, and can young aspirants from Bharat as against India be equally successful? And my strong belief is yes, and I'm going to request Vikram at some point in time to kind of delve on it. But again, very recently, I interacted with the entrepreneur who comes from a small place called Shirur, which is about 70 kilometers away from Pune. The gentleman, his name is Sakore. He's a farmer's son. And while his parents wanted him to be a mechanical engineer and join the industrial world, this kid is very clued on to farming, and he spent 6 months in Kerala learning about sustainable farming practices. And he spent the last year and a half in talking to farmers in his region about improving the quality of soil, which has deteriorated rapidly. But his entrepreneurial venture, it's called Be a Farmer for a Day. And he's excited a lot of urban folks by creating a small experiential day for them in his farm, when he teaches them about very simple farming techniques, but he connects the consumers of farm produce. So for me, for my for people around me, going to a farm and spending a day with this entrepreneur was a fascinating experience. The point I'm trying to make is not all startup ventures need to be led by technology or in this the whole realm of e-commerce or digital, but there are some real life traditional businesses which are showing tremendous opportunities. I want to continue by saying that the ecosystem for entrepreneurs is ripe in India. And last night, while preparing for this workshop, I spent some time on the government portal, startupindia.gov.in. And it is one of the most fascinating websites I've ever seen, because every resource that could be useful for a budding entrepreneur is listed out there. You want a template for a business plan, it's there. You want to access funding through angel investors, the network is there. You have brilliant market reports. You want to talk to an IP lawyer or a copyright firm, they are there. There are 128,000 enterprises or budding startups that are registered on this portal. And the government support through various schemes is listed down very, very creatively. And I'm absolutely amazed at the kind of support that the government has for entrepreneurs out here. This is just an example. When you look in and around Pune, where I was kind of fortunate to spend a large part of my life. In the College of Engineering, Pune, there is an incubator called the Bhau Center of Innovation, and it can be counted amongst the best in India. You go to the National Chemical Laboratories, there's a venture center out there. The Indus entrepreneurs in Pune are doing a phenomenal job. So for budding entrepreneurs out there, the ecosystem is fantastic. And during this conversation or later, you're free to ask the four of us, the ecosystem that exists. So I'm going to kind of, I had 5 to 7 minutes, which I think I've used up, to just give you a background and an overview of the amazing possibilities that exist for folks who are thinking of the specialization in entrepreneurship and startup management. I'm going to now hand over to my colleague, my friends Anish, Vivek, and Vikram to have their opening comments, kind of share their entrepreneurial journeys, and leave us with some opening thoughts. And after that, I'm going to hand it over to Shruti Madam to take things ahead. So thank you so much for your attention. Over to you, Anish.
Thanks. Thanks, Nitin and Vikram and Vivek. Pleasure to be with you guys in the same panel. Hello everyone. Being an alumni of IMDR, it's actually my privilege to be out here. I will give you a small historical perspective of how our journey has been since IMDR and how it's shaped up our life. I think in the space. You recollect Vivek and Nitin, when we passed out in 1992, India had just about embarked on its journey for liberalization. So India was just opening for business. So we had sunrise industries in the form of IT, finance, media, logistics, these were some of the industries which were opening up. Now, interestingly, almost all of us came from a very, very middle class background. We had seen all our parents either working in public sector units or private sector all their lives. So for us, when we graduated, I think one of the first priorities for all of us was, let's find a good company, let's gain some experience. As we gain experience, we'll be able to accumulate some amount of capital with us. Once we have the capital, the risk appetite in our lives will open up. Only when the risk appetite opens up will we ever think of being an entrepreneur. And I think that was the logical corollary in which our lives flowed. For me personally, at the age of 38, I was heading HSBC's Indian equities operations. I learned almost everything that equities and IB investment banking business could have taught us. Having put in about 25 years in the industry, I was part of the HSBC's Asian leadership team, and the feeling crept in that being there, done it all, should I move on? And that's when I took my first plunge. When I moved along with my entire top management team of HSBC, formed a boutique investment banking firm, ran it very successfully for 6 years, very profitably, and ended up selling it to India's one of the largest industrial houses. And that's when I realized that some amount of risk appetite had to be there in life. After that, I decided that this is it. Whatever I've done in terms of experience, whatever I've accumulated in terms of little bit in terms of money, I'll put it to use. And that's when I started my own venture capital firm. Today, we have invested in 50 odd companies. So, I was talking about what has changed. I think Indians are now actually dreaming of building world-class businesses, scale businesses. One of the most important things that has also changed is access to information. I think that's with the entry of Jio, the backbone of the Indian internet has been built, and I think that's a huge change that we have seen. Access to capital. Back in 1992 to 2000, I don't think so India has seen that kind of capital which is available today. If you have a great idea today, I think capital is no more of a problem. The flip side to that also, there's an example that even if you are bootstrapped, there are enough entrepreneurs who have made it big. I mean, of those of us who are actually trading in stock markets, Zerodha is a great example. Completely bootstrapped. Nitin has not raised a single rupee, and today it's a unicorn. So I think these are the things which are very, very important to the changes that we have seen from my perspective. Just one last interesting message which I would like to leave for the batch of 2022-23. You guys have a tremendous amount of advantage. The advantage that I see is, imagine if you were born in Sweden, Switzerland, and if you wanted to be an entrepreneur. These are very, very developed countries. But tell me, what is your addressable market? Yeah, someone yesterday, when we were talking about vaccination, gave me a very good example that Denmark, addressing a market in Denmark is equivalent to addressing market between Andheri and Borivali. Now, that's the greatest advantage that we all have. Our addressable market is 130 crores. Even if you say that share of 50%, you still have 650 million people, largest middle class, which is available for you. Two more advantages. You're in a democratic country, and there is a rule of law. I think the last two are probably not applicable to Chinese entrepreneurs. I mean, Jack Ma of Alibaba can be the biggest man one day, and second day his entire enterprise can be taken over by the government. So I think those are the advantages that you all have in front of you, and it's for all of us to take this story to the next level. So with those encouraging thoughts and historical perspective, I'll hand over to my next panelist. I don't know, it's going to be Vikram or Vivek, whosoever feels free. Go ahead, guys.
Whoever jumps the gun. Vivek, you're on mute.
I said I will let Vikram, do the honors. So there's been alumni talking so far. So we require a IITN's perspective to the entire, to the theme today. So over to you, Vikram.
No, thanks so much, first of all, for inviting me to this panel. So it's really an honor. And I was just very carefully listening to Nitin and Anish, and I think completely agree with whatever they said. It's a big opportunity today in India, and I'll probably tell you a little bit about my own story. When I started IVCAP in the year 2011, people don't believe that actually I had a zero cash balance. There was I had no savings, and I was out there to start a venture capital fund, which is all about investing capital. And I think it was a very bold move. I didn't even have a team at that time. So this was like just out there trying to start a 200 crore fund. And I'll tell you, I had a belief, one, of course, belief in myself. My family was with me. And then the other important thing, I had belief in the idea, which I thought will work. And the reason I want to talk about it is because I think it's quite relevant to the discussion today, because the idea which I started with was that, the only people, or the first set of people rather, who will trust me are the people who are the alumni of my alma mater. For any business, for any startup, for any initiative that you work on, what you need is a network effect. You need to build relationships. You need to build relationships on all sides, whether it's customers or building a team or building an investor base. So you need actually relationships, and those relationships require an element of trust. And what I realized was that the first level of trust that you can build is from the people who actually studied in the same educational institution as you have. And therefore, I started reaching out to people from my batches, people from my seniors, from my hostel, not just from IIT Delhi, where I studied, from IIT Bombay, IIT Madras. In fact, I had built my own database of alumni of IITs, about 75,000 of them, and reached out to every one of those, and received a very substantial response in the first year itself. And not only I was able to form a very, very formidable team, I was able to form a very commendable board comprising of distinguished alumni of IITs and people who've been there, done that. And in the process, not only I was able to raise 200 crores, I was actually able to cross that, reach 240 crores in the first fund itself. So I think this is, if there was one lesson I would like to give from my experience, is that, if you have passion about something, if you are thinking of an idea, if you believe that, your idea has power, you need to go out and network with people and find the right mentors for yourself and find the right set of people who you can trust or who can trust you. And I think start with your alumni, and some of your alumni are already here in this panel as well, so they could be your point of contact as well. But I think that's one part. The second is, I think it's very important, what both Anish and Nitin mentioned is that, the opportunity in India is just amazing. I think where we are as a startup ecosystem, look at the number of unicorns. I was looking at the news yesterday, just in the year 2021, in the month of April, we already have 12 new unicorns in India, so this is despite all the challenges that we're facing, because of COVID and other issues. And I think the opportunity is unbelievable, and it's not just in the metros. And I think Nitin gave a very good example of the size of population that is there just in Mumbai as an example. But I also believe that there is opportunity even beyond metros. So in fact, any opportunities in tier 2, tier 3, and rural India, there are phenomenal opportunities. Not only in multilingual areas, if you can actually create solutions which cater to those languages, multilingual. Like if you have something which is focused on Gujarati population or South Indian population or Northeast population, I think currently there are hardly any solutions which are specifically directed to those people. Even the rural part where the farmers are actually now looking for quite substantial kind of opportunities, and there are various models which are now getting tested in that space, and some of them we ourselves been involved in. I would say that this entire penetration of smartphones, internet, and with what companies like Jio are doing with the kind of funding they raised last year, over $21 billion, basically to build this, connect with that unbanked and non-online population in India, which is now expected to get online in a very short period of time. So you're actually going to expect a large number of businesses flourishing, either if you're already online or if you're getting online. I think the opportunities are limitless. So I think if you are even thinking of becoming an entrepreneur and, if you're worried about is it the right thing to do, I think you should just, talk to the right people and just, go for it. And I would say just follow your heart, get the right people around and, just try this out, because many times, in our times when we were just coming out of college, getting a government job and getting a safe job used to be the right thing to do. But I think these days, even families and parents are supporting it. So that's what I want to say as a beginning remark. So, happy to discuss other points during the panel discussion.
Thank you, Vikram. I think I'll take over now, Nitin, with your permission.
Yes, please.
Okay. All right. So I will briefly introduce, you to myself as in my entrepreneurship journey. So let me tell you to begin with, there is nothing like, when you can be an entrepreneur. You have an excellent example among the panel. We have Nitin, who started he was entrepreneur at the age of 26. We have Vikram, I think, was at the age of 40. And, I was entrepreneur at the age of 35, and Anish was entrepreneur at the age of 46. So there's nothing like the right age to be an entrepreneur. Every day, of your life, whenever when you think that it's right time for you to try to be an entrepreneur, that is the right day. So, it's not necessary that, today we are sitting in this forum and we are talking about being entrepreneurs. It's not necessary that you have to be ready for that and you need to be an entrepreneur and not look for a job or, say that, can I be an entrepreneur tomorrow? No. That opportunity can be anytime. But as long as you know in your mind that at some point of time I have to be an entrepreneur, I'm sure the opportunity will come your way. So that's just to, get that clarity in terms of when you can be an entrepreneur. So I mean, so after passing out of IMDR in 1992, I came to Bombay and I was working here, and at that time, there were few opportunities, and getting a job was easy. But at the same time, all along in my mind, I was looking for whether I can be an entrepreneur, and the opportunity came in the year 2005. So when when I came, I worked for a Tata company called Forbes Campbell and Company at that time for about 15 months. Then I realized that, a large organization may not offer you the best learning opportunities. So then I thereafter, immediately took up a job in another company, which was a startup at that time called All Cargo, now which is a global enterprise with 6,000 crores turnover and having offices all over the globe. So, and I was a founder employee in that company, and it was a startup at then. And that gave me a huge opportunity. So if you cannot be an entrepreneur and you want to start your journey in real life as an employee, there's nothing that the right company. It's not necessary that you have to go for a big brand, to gain experience. You can start small. You can start with a startup company, and you can have your career established. Today we are close to, although the CV said that, my biodata said that about 800 people, now we are close to 1,000 people. I mean, that needs to be updated. And our turnover is close to 800 crores. And we intend to, the target is to cross 1,000 crores in the coming year. So, I mean, that's the scale one can achieve. And we've been in business for the last, now see, this is the 16th year of our operation, 2005 we started. So it's possible to scale up. Talking about network, one excellent point which Vikram brought about was about the network. So when in 2005, when me and my partner quit our job, so there's an interesting story. And so we are in the business of international logistics. In international logistics, you cannot do business without having a network, international network of companies whom you can tag along with, or you can be part of that network and you will handle the cargo in India and they will handle your cargo in the respective countries that you send them to. So you have to be part of an international network. You need to be connected. So here we wanted to be on our own. We thought that we can put everything together, but we didn't have a network. So we were so-called entrepreneurs wanting to be entrepreneurs with no job and no network. And then we learned that there is this Danish company who's they're with the American base. They are visiting India. We knew them from before because we're from the same business, and they are looking for some change of agency in India. So there we were, sitting in one of the hotels in Mumbai and making a presentation to them. So they asked us one thing: what do you have? I said, we don't have anything in terms of existing business. We don't have anything in terms of number of people, as in teams. We don't have offices. But I said, what we have is the confidence in ourselves to make things happen. And as a startup, 1993 to 2005, we have done wonders with this company that we have just quit, and we can replicate the same thing, for ourselves. So that's the confidence that we come with. And you have seen us, because since we are from the same business, that how we have functioned, and that our connectivity and network there helped us to become part of that network. So it was a networking to be part of the network, and that helped us greatly to put this, our business plan together and to see the success that we are. So yes, so just going back to the network aspect, if we had not connected with people, if we did not know people, then we would have never had that meeting. And if we had never had that meeting, we would have never been part of that network. We would have not got that opportunity, and probably we would not have been able to scale up to what we have done today. So networking is extremely important, not only with your alumni, but also with all kinds of people, all across life. You don't know who can be of use to you tomorrow. So it's important to keep on meeting people. So that's about networking. Now, one of the questions when we were talking yesterday, Nitin asked me as to, what is it that contributed to your success, or how were you able to scale up? I said, one of the things that we invested right in the beginning, before we signed our lease to the office, is we invested in a software, an operating system which could handle our business. So way back in 2005, we had not taken the possession of our office, but before that we were signing an agreement with a software company who had one of the best softwares at that time, who could handle the business. So if you have a good software and if you have good people to manage the software, because ours is a very operational intensive kind of a business, so it demanded that kind of investments. And with the processes and people in place, we really didn't have to invest our time into firefighting, or invest our time into monitoring the business. The business was being monitored by the processes that we had put in place, by a good software operating system, and by a good set of people. So that gave us an opportunity to concentrate on and do the ideation for, and look for opportunities for growth, and we could dedicate time for growth. So if you have your operations, processes, and systems in place, then the scaling up becomes easier. So if that explains, as to how businesses can be scaled up. And when you're talking about, the last point I would like to make in my opening remarks is, today we are here and you as first year PGDM students, you have a choice of taking the startup and entrepreneurship program in your year 2 as one of the minor courses or as the minor course. Now, whether you become an entrepreneur after passing out, of your graduation program, or you become an employee, it is immaterial, because even a good employer, all employers are looking for growth hackers. They want people with entrepreneurial mindset. They want people to come up with a startup mindset, come and disrupt their businesses and bring up the scale which every business house today is looking for. Everybody is looking for growth, and everybody wants, good, smart, young people in their team who can, drive this growth, who can bring up the disruptions, who can work as with an entrepreneurial mindset within the organization. So I'm sure, if you opt to do this course, it will give you those necessary skills to make that difference, whether it's a workplace or whether you want to start your entrepreneurship journey early in life. So with that, back to you, Nitin.
Thank you, Vivek. And such fascinating journeys. I mean, diverse. And each one has his strong suite. I think there were some very, very interesting takeaways when Anish spoke about just the size of the addressable market. And I'm going to look at Andheri and Borivali very different the next time I'm going from that area. But and the fact that the building blocks in terms of bandwidth, internet connectivity, and access to capital. So these building blocks are there, and for those of you, who feel that there could be any barriers to entrepreneurship, it's people like Anish who will kind of help you saying no, that's not true. Again, Vikram, thank you for getting to our attention the strength of the networks and the ability to work with credible peers to present your idea, and the fact that if you have some common background or bonding, or there's some trusted network that you have access to, you can launch yourself a bit more easily. And again, it's fascinating to note when you said that you started off with no capital and you raised 240 crores. So that's extremely commendable. And Vivek, when you spoke of the, entrepreneurship or the kind of people that you would like to hire now as a successful businessman who heads a 800 crore business, the fact that people passing out of B schools like our fellow alumni from IMDR, so probably my first question is to you, Vivek. Can one develop this entrepreneurial mindset or the ability to say, hey, though I'm working in a job, to begin with, let's say, I take upon a sense of ownership or accountability, and I'm not doing a 9-to-5 job. So how does one build? How did it come into you when you're working at All Cargo?
Yeah, so exactly, you hit the nail. Is that you have to have the ownership, even if you are an employee. If you work with the mindset of, I own this, the job profile which I've been assigned to, or, stepping out of your, typical profile which you've been assigned to, and, going and helping your customers, or, walking that extra mile into making things happen, even at workplace, you get recognized. And not only internally within the organization, not only by your bosses, but by your customers. And then comes the interesting part, is that you become as a reference point for your customers. So people, who have had pleasant experiences of working with you will always, recommend your name to somebody else. They said, okay, you have logistics requirement, go and speak to XYZ person. I met him, and or he's already handling my business, and they're doing a wonderful job. So your business development becomes easier. You further build the network. So when people start believing in you, firstly you have to believe in yourself. You take the ownership, then you transfer that belief into others. Others start believing in you, and when you have a set of strong beliefs about yourself and about people believing in you, then you know that I'm doing something right, and it's time for me to start on own. But it all starts with a sense of ownership. So you be committed, do your job properly, do something more than what your job is demanding. When people start believing in you, your confidence in yourself doubles, and that helps you to set on the journey of entrepreneurship.
Well taken, Vivek. And with that, so it's a bit of a follow-on question, but Anish, here we are, sitting with about 100+ students, many of whom are thinking of, taking the specialization in entrepreneurship, and many of them who would think of launching their own ventures at some point in time. Now, as someone who funds early stage companies, I'm sure you evaluate business plans all the time, and you pour through what budding entrepreneurs have to say in terms of product stories, so on and so forth. But I'm sure you also evaluate the people who are talking to you very, very carefully. So any piece of advice to these youngsters when they create their business plans, or when you look for qualities in an entrepreneur, what are the qualities that kind of stand out for you?
Thanks, Vivek. I think one quality which actually stands out for us is the scale of opportunity. I think whenever someone comes to us, we look at the industry in which he or she is trying to make a mark, but what is the scale that that particular proposition can achieve is I think, the most important thing. This followed by the integrity of the promoter. I think that's the single most important thing which we are very, very careful. My professor used to always tell me, or my guru in this industry used to always tell me, in venture capital firms, because at VC stage, we take the highest amount of risk in the entire value chain. We are the first investors that come in. And hence, if something goes wrong, we are the first ones to take the hit as well. The point that I was told always was that be like Rahul Dravid. The number of balls you leave are more important than the number of balls you play. And I think that's something which I have really followed it up until now. For an idea that we have invested, we would have probably given a pass to about 15 of them. And that's what has actually worked for us. And we have a very internal, strong DNA which we follow, that we can afford to go wrong on the gyrations of the industry. If something happened to a particular company, particular venture, because the industry took a beating, or the external environment took a beating which was not under control, we can live with it. But if we get the people wrong, the entrepreneur wrong, I think you have lost the money right at the inception. Then it's just a matter of how long the pain will be. So I think that's the single most important cornerstone for us. The people, the quality of people, the integrity of the people, and the brightness of the idea to be followed, scale of opportunity to be there as well. I think that's where I would be at.
Wow, those are like bullet points. Have a great idea, have high level of integrity, and think of scale. I mean, I wish I'd met Anish, or I'd taken Anish seriously when I knew him in college. Thanks, Anish. This is much appreciated. Vikram, you spoke of mentorship in a very, very positive sense, and a very, as one of the fundamental, it's very necessary for entrepreneurship, is what I hear from you. So, when youngsters walk to you for advice, how do you mentor them? And I think, are there any best practices in mentorship that these budding entrepreneurs can follow? Or how do you find mentors, and how do you work with them to kind of build your ventures?
Yeah, Nathan, in our case, we've actually formalized the whole mentorship program, and I think we are fortunate to have got support from over 5,000 alumni of the IITs who've come forward and basically said that they would love to support these startups. We've also created a core group of about 65 mentors working through a structured trust that we've created. And every time we take a Series A bet, where we like to take a substantial 25 to 30% stake at that stage, because we like to very actively get involved with our entrepreneurs. And there, at that stage, over and above the stake that we take in these companies, there is that 1% stake that goes to this mentor trust, which basically works on a similar principles of ESOPs. So there's a entry price, there's exit price, which is aligned with our exit. That way, some of these mentors really like that concept. In fact, the way we've done this is that our fund principle itself is set up on the concept of endowment. So Fund 1, as an example, 25% of our carry, which is a profit of the fund manager, goes back as endowment to the IITs. That was also the basic principles of setting up India's first endowment fund at IIT Delhi, which was launched by the Honorable President of India at Rashtrapati Bhavan, where I was there personally to make the presentation. Now it's getting replicated to other IITs. The concept has also been applied to the mentorship, where some of our mentors like a Deep Kalra or a Gautam Kumra, who's the McKinsey India head, or a Ravi Dhariwal, who's the former CEO of Times of India. Some of these people very passionately get involved with our companies, and some of them don't do it because of that 1%. And people would say that whatever the share that comes to me, you give it to my alma mater as endowment. So that actually creates further passion, because you're actually supporting startup ecosystem. You're also doing it for a cause. And we believe that kind of a mentorship is very important. When you actually do it in a structured way, it has even better impact and outcome on the startups.
Vikram, this is exciting because I know the idea of an endowment was mooted at IMDR, and I think Anish has been an advocate of having a pool, that kind of supports the growth of our alma mater. So, really appreciate you kind of putting this in our head. Bound to take this very seriously. One quick follow-on question for you, Vikram. You probably invested in companies across sectors. And currently, a lot is being spoken about sunrise sectors. It's again a cliched word, but what's happening in the circular economy, what's happening in areas like waste to wealth. Of course, some of the more popular ones with the investors in terms of IoT and Industry 4.0. But we'd love to hear from you on the sectors that you think hold opportunity as well as promise.
Yeah, so I think to be honest with you, in India, you pick any sector, if you have an innovative business model in that sector, you will succeed, because, as a country, we are growing and there are opportunities everywhere. But yes, if we were to look at the sectors which I personally believe will offer much larger opportunities as compared to others. So I see healthcare now, actually, especially with what's happening with COVID, we are going to see a completely renewed kind of a set of opportunities emerging there, in terms of infrastructure management, the management of the supply of the whole supplies, whether it is medicines or devices or other things. And any technology which actually supports that. We recently had invested in a company called PharmaRack, which was connecting the entire supply chain of pharma. And we invested in 2019, and the company grew so fast that last month we just sold it at a very substantial returns. That's the healthcare part, which I see a huge opportunity area. Education has emerged as a very, very interesting opportunity in the last, again, I would say, especially last couple of years. You've seen companies like White Hat Junior, which didn't exist, 2.5 years ago. And all of a sudden they were sold for $300 million to Byju's. This is something which talks about the scale that can be achieved. What Anish was talking about, when you look at these opportunities, look for the scale potential. And some of these things can scale up very, very fast. And that's an area where I see substantial opportunities. In fact, we recently invested in a junior of White Hat Junior. And actually, it's a company similar to that, but what I realized is that the markets are actually global. 60% of White Hat Junior's revenues actually come from the US markets. There are opportunities all over in terms of how you can take this kind of a product or solution to global markets. And then, of course, there are opportunities when you look at the B2C opportunities. India offers a huge consumer market opportunity. Whether you're talking about Denmark not having the consumer market. Most of these entrepreneurs would be looking for India consumer market. So any B2C businesses, would offer substantial or would have substantial opportunities in multiple segments of the India consumer market. And when it comes to B2B opportunities, then world is your market. And in fact, we actually recommend to our entrepreneurs that if you have a SaaS-based product or a tech platform, there is a much better market outside of India. US markets, for example, pay much higher price, even though they take time to close. But once they close, your payment cycles is not a problem, which is typically there in India. You get much better value overall for your products. So any products which can leverage technologies related to AI or machine learning or blockchain, some of these newer technologies are now being applied to all these sector areas, and things like cybersecurity, given the volume of the data which is actually scaling up substantially, is becoming a huge opportunity. And I think the right products there would become unicorns in no time. So I think I'm quite excited about the kind of opportunities which are sitting out there.
Cool. I think what you spoke about healthcare and education is particularly interesting, given the emergence of some of the new models. I think it will be interesting to track that space. I'm now a bit conscious of time and probably have a last couple of quick questions, and then I'll hand it over to all of you for your closing remarks. So we were really, growing to a scale where you have 800 plus people, close to 1,000 people, it's fascinating. And when we talk of HR, in all its entirety, and the different areas where there are potential conflict in teams, or this cohesion that's required, how do you handle the human angle in your companies? Are there any tricks out there?
So it all begin with, as an entrepreneur, you need to be multifaceted. You need to be able to handle all kinds of functions. So HR is one of those functions. And then in the beginning years, it was all HR by frontline. It was us who were handling the people issues. It was us who were involved in the hiring. It was us who were involved in firing if required. Very few of them, but yes. And training, mentoring. So you play all the hats, not only among different functions, but within the function also there are multiple things that you need to do, which I just mentioned, right from recruitment, the entire employee life cycle. So we did play an important role, and we then passed on that role to our business heads, and for the last now more than 6+ years, seventh year now, we have very senior HR resources in our team. She's a doctorate in psychology. And she is the one who is driving the HR, agenda for our organization. And I think as an organization, we are lucky to have a senior professional in our team who is driving the HR agenda. But yes, running an organization with large manpower has its own challenges in terms of people, handling the people. So this is here coming back to my own earlier point which I highlighted about the processes. So process not only related to business, but processes also in terms of recruitment, in terms of compensation, in terms of annual increases, in terms of leave management. So we these are all hygiene factors for the people. You pay them on time, you ensure that they're taken care of, you ensure that that the compensation is at par with the industry. So if that hygiene factor, a basic hygiene factor is taken care of through your processes, then managing team also becomes much more easier. Then you're only talking about some incremental issues in terms of maybe some conflicts here and there. not, so, and then another thing is that we, what helped us as entrepreneurs is our professional background. Being a management graduates, me and my partner, we looked at running the business from a professional angle. We never got personalities involved in business. So I think what attracts people to an organization is the professional work culture, and also the same work culture ensures that employees stick around. We have people who have, and one of the IMD alumni who joined us, who have joined us as management trainees, and after 10 years they're still working, continue to work with us, and they have grown with the organization. So yes, I mean, you have processes be frontline, HR managers, and then eventually you get somebody very good to ensure that you can pass on that responsibility to that person who heads your HR. So that has been our personal experience.
Excellent, Vivek. The way you spoke of hygiene factors, I think you should be on some of the COVID response teams, I think, with the correctness. But my last question of today, it goes to Anish. Anish, again, you've seen exits, you've seen life cycles of businesses, and I'm a firm. I mean, the way you think business and the way you look at businesses, you measure the milestones very carefully. That's what I've seen in our conversation, and I know you have a clear thought about exits and how both ramp up and exits. So my last question is, for young budding entrepreneurs, should they at all be thinking of exits in the first place, or as an investor, what would you guide them in the life cycle of the business?
I have this favorite punchline which I keep giving. Whether it is business, jobs, relationships, I think you must have an exit strategy. It's not necessary that everything will work out the way you wanted. It's not necessary to continue doing what you were doing all your life. You have only one life, and you need to enjoy it. So I think coming from an equities, secondary market equities background, for us, exit was everything. And I think that's also a good goal to have, that I will grow the business to this extent, to this way. At this particular inflection point, I would like to get out. I would like to merge. I would like to sell. I would like to do something else. Why not? I mean, I asked that question to all my companies, that what's your exit strategy? Because unless the entrepreneur gives me some idea about what he's thinking exit 10, 20, 15 years later, how the hell as an investor am I going to get to my exit? I have a life cycle of 5, 7, 8, 10 years, no more than that. So I think having an exit strategy, probably not at the inception, but somewhere, if I succeed and I grow it to my organization or my business proposition to a certain extent, yeah, why not? I would like to take some chips off the table. Nothing wrong with it, and I would encourage all the entrepreneurs to think that way. Why not? Thanks.
Yeah. Interesting, Anish. I mean, from Rahul Dravid leaving the balls to having a clear strategy for every exit, your insights have been wonderful. So just before I hand it over back to Shruti Madam for any questions, I'm going to request the three of you to just give us your closing comments, maybe 30 seconds, in way of your advice to budding entrepreneurs and to the students who are evaluating specialization in entrepreneurship and startup management. So maybe we'll begin with Vikram and then probably move on.
No, I think this is, I mean, of course, we've talked about it in the entire discussion, that I think anybody who's thinking about it, I think they should definitely take this up, because any amount of learning that you can do while you're in school always is helpful, because you need to have those fundamentals in terms of, various things, including finance management, how to manage your finances. Vivek talked about building teams, and I think that's very, very important. And I think that's part of the learning that comes with this kind of a program. and of course, then the basic principles of marketing and all. So I think a packaged kind of learning like that is very helpful when you actually go out in the market, to execute your business plans. So definitely, this is something people should go for. So I strongly encourage anybody who's a budding entrepreneur.
I think we lost Nitin. Okay, Nitin is back.
No, Vivek, over to you.
Okay, so then a quick closing 30 seconds from me is that firstly, be brave. Nothing wrong to start as an employee. All of us, just to reiterate, all of us started our journey as employees. Choose the industry of your liking. I was always interested in logistics, and I started my career in logistics, and I became an entrepreneur in logistics. Keep on looking for opportunities. Keep on meeting people. Keep on discussing ideas. Something is bound to click. Not all startups need to be in the TMT domain, that is telecom, media, technology. But as a startup, use technology as an enabler. That's the one that's going to help you scale up. So that's my closing remark. Anish.
Thank you, Vivek. Over to you, Anish.
Yeah, I would like to just wind up by saying that India needs job creators. We need to grow, and we have a massive problem if we don't create jobs. And as they say, Modi kitna kar lega? I think it's all up to us as well as job creators, and find people who will create more jobs and put money behind it. Just one thing, when we were in 1992, when we passed out, things like telecom or insurance were not the industries which were open. They were all governed by government. Today, those industries are completely open. So my limited point is that you can have today's entrepreneurs or today's pass-out graduates will have many more opportunities, many more fields, and many industries to look at. The last point I would like to leave with is that it need not be a eureka moment. It need not be a eureka idea. It can be a simple idea. If you have the tenacity in you to take it to the next level, and if you see a business proposition in this, there is disruption to be done. Now let's face one simple thought. I will leave it with everyone. Dhirubhai Ambani started from there, just a trader, came here and started a refinery. Before that, polypropylene and other things. And look at his son, what he has taken. So Reliance, if you see, over the last 30 years, has seen a massive transformation. And I think that's something which I would leave it with, that the largest enterprise in the country has seen some of the biggest transformations in their own life cycle of 30 years. I think that's where I would leave it at.
Thank you, Anish. I think, Anish, we need to, get you over to IMDR one day just to talk about Mr. Dhirubhai Ambani and Reliance. I think that's your passion, and you studied that group very intensely. So again, would love to hear from you about that group someday. Shruti Madam, over to you for the questions. And again, it would be remiss if I did not thank Vikram, Vivek, and Anish. Guys, this has been fantastic. Thank you so much. And let's take a few questions from here.
Thank you, sir. Yes, Ankita.
A very hearty thank you to all the panelists. And now I would request my colleagues and teachers to please raise their hand if they have any questions. Rasika ma'am, I would request you to unmute yourself and please ask your question. Rasika ma'am, in case if you are asking a question, you're not audible.
I think she needs to unmute herself.
Meanwhile, we can take another question from Uganda.
Okay, ma'am. Sure. Kalyani, I would request you to unmute yourself and please ask your question.
Yes, thank you, Ankita. So I have a question. My father is a businessman, and we have a family business owned by my grandfather also. So my father is continuing, and I have a question like how to expand our family business.
So, what kind of business is this, if I may ask?
Yes, sir. So cattle feed business.
Cattle feed business. Okay, so basically, do you do your own manufacturing or you do a retail of that?
Sir, retailer.
A retailer. Yeah. So basically, what you need to typically, not too long ago, one of the richest man in the world was a retailer. I mean, and that to a grocer. So Sam Walton of Walmart, till few years ago was one of the richest man, and he built his entire business from being a retailer by having grocery stores, famously known as Walmart. So yes, it's so you have a very fine example, in replicating, a good success story. So if you are like a cattle feed, retailer, so you need to standardize on all the formats of the way you are doing your business, in terms of how you deal with your customers, your accounting system, your inventory management systems, the way your stores are organized, the way you reach out to your customers. So once you list down all the things that that goes into your business, and the way you run your business, just sit at the cash counter and see how the business is being run, and right from procurement to the sales process, and see if there's an opportunity to standardize it. Once you standardize it, then it's very easy to replicate. So when they say that, how did the famous McDonald, to achieve the scale that it achieved? Only through standardization. So I think standardization of processes really help you to replicate. So I think that would be a starting point. That would be my, first suggestion. I'm sure, Nitin, Anish, Vikram, they would have something else to add apart from what I just mentioned. Anish, anything from your side?
So I think not that I'm an expert in the field that has been spoken about, but the entire cattle feed business itself is going through a lot of transformation, and there are a lot of mixed artificial stuff which is being made in the laboratories, and much more nutritious products are available, found, made, invented in countries like Israel. I think there is a lot to be done. Again, I come back to the same point. The scale of the opportunity is outstanding. It's too big. So I think just being a retail, you are a management graduate, and probably, I don't know what your parents or your siblings, but you might be very well suited in your industry to actually go in your family to go out and check what are the opportunities across the world in this particular field, and can you have the same thing being brought into India? I think there is an opportunity. I mean, let's look at Adani for example. 20 years back, a trader, today owns almost all the ports, all the airports, largest importer of coal, palm oil in the country. Well, the opportunities are amazing. So I think it's how much you think about it is your it's Karlo Dunya Mutti Mein. This is all I would leave it with.
Anything from Vikram's side on this?
No, I think I don't have much to add to what Anish and Vivek already said. So that's fine.
Yes, thank you, sir.
Shruti ma'am, I was unable to unmute myself for some reason. I don't really know why. Should I ask my question now?
Yes, ma'am. Please, ma'am. Yes, ma'am, please.
Vivek sir, Professor Datar this side. I'm an alumni of IMDR and also an entrepreneur myself. I have an ad agency and currently teaching entrepreneurship to the PGDM2 students. So first, before I pose my question, I would like to share something with you, which I'm sure you'll feel very nice about. This semester in our entrepreneurship class, we had major brainstorming sessions for business ideas. And one group of the students have come up with innovative masks, all right? Smart masks to fight corona. They plan to actually work on this idea post their exams. So I thought I'd like to share this with you.
That's really nice to hear. Yeah.
Yeah. And so my question to you was, I very often find very innovative and very practical ideas coming up from students. Last year's batch, there were as many as 16 people who came forth with innovative ideas. What happens is very often they are from different fields and it's difficult to get experts to guide them in that particular field. How do you think we could face this challenge?
Can you just repeat your question? I'm sorry, I didn't register that.
Yeah. What happens very often is, they come up with an innovative idea, which I feel is practical as well, but the ideas are so varied and from so many different fields. I mean, from something as simple as a designer boutique to some state-of-the-art service or product. And it's very difficult to get them in touch with an expert from that particular field to guide them. So how do you think we could face this challenge?
I think Anish wanted to answer that question. Anish, over to you.
Yeah, I'll take that. I think each management institution, has a huge database of students who have passed out, who have done well, who are in certain industries. And what we've been telling, Vivek and I have been telling your director, Dr. Shika, who's been doing a fantastic job, is let's try and have at least a monthly symposium or get-together of people from various industries listening to these ideas and trying to suggest whether these ideas are worth investing, worth taking to the next level. If not, who can, amongst us, can help you think better, think bigger. I think that's something which is a very practical idea. Just a monthly meeting, and we can take help the students just refine whether the ideas are workable in our opinion or not. Simple, just act as a filter. That's all we are trying to say.
Yes, sir. That would be.
And additionally, what you can do is you can build up your alumni database. And there will always be some people who would be from that space, who with whom these ideas can also be bounced. So and then so the alumni database can be harnessed for spreading these ideas or bouncing these ideas and taking their inputs. And second is it will be a good idea that now IMDR also starts their own incubation center. I think that is something that we all probably can contribute to, and we can all ideate it. And of course, we can also request Vikram to help us with that because he has good experience of building incubation center. So I think that's another thing that should be taken as a follow-up action at the institute level to have an incubation center in place.
Definitely, sir. I think both the ideas will really work well.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Rishikesh, I would request you to unmute yourself and ask your question.
Hello, sir. I am Rishikesh Karandigar. So you share your thoughts about the mentor. So I want to ask that if a person has a mentor, but he's not able to communicate or talk with his mentor, but he always follows his mentor's thoughts or opinions. So is it okay to have relationship like that between mentor and mentee?
Can I request, I think, Vikram to take over this, because I think he is a big time into mentorships. Vikram, over to you.
I think what you explained is more of building a role model versus actually a mentor-mentee relationship. In a mentor-mentee relationship, your mentor has to buy into what you're doing and has to be also passionate about helping you out. So you need to find someone who not only has the right experience and the skill set, etc. You also need to have someone who has a whose interests are aligned to actually help you. So somebody who can allocate their time, and that's not easy to find. But if you really look around and make a genuine effort, I think there are people you will find. So I think you should work towards that.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Kunj, I would request you to unmute yourself and ask your question.
Thank you, Ankita. First of all, thank you so much for this wonderful session. What I want to ask is, we have heard about ventures and entrepreneurs and all those things. So I wanted to know that what is the difference between entrepreneur and venture startup?
Interesting question. I don't have an answer for that. I think they are all broadly the same. But if anybody else on the panel would like to take that.
Yeah, I mean, we did discuss this. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah.
Harish, did you want to say something?
I think I'll give you a small example of what happened with me last week. I got a call, unsolicited call on my mobile, and there was a guy from the other side from Bihar. And I don't know how he got my number, but he said, hello, sunenge, idea sunenge, hamara idea bahut acha hai. And I was like little bounced. I said, this looks to be a prank call. I said, hello, can I help you? देखिए हम इंडस्ट्रियल रोबोट बनाते हैं. And I just heard industrial robot being made by this guy. And I just spent next half an hour on a video call with him. And the guy in some part of Bihar had actually made a reasonably working industrial robot. And then when he asked me the question that ये जो एंटरप्रेन्योरशिप होता है या ये जो वेंचर कैपिटल होता है इसमें फर्क क्या है? इट स्ट्रक मी. आई सेड सर आप ऑलरेडी एंटरप्रेन्योर हो. बोले क्या? बोला आपने ऑलरेडी एक धंधा देख चुके हो आप जो अच्छा है आपके इधर से, ये देखना पड़ेगा. I did not buy into his idea about industrial robot, but I found the guy to be genuinely a guy worth exploring a few ideas in rural Bihar, and I'm actually in talks with them. So all I would like to say is धंधा करना सीख लो, वो बाकी सब छोड़ दो. धंधा है क्या इसमें? Is there a business proposition? वो venture capital, PE, ये सब terms छोड़ दो आप. If there's business proposition, that's it. That's all you need to worry about.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Anuja, I would like to request you to unmute yourself and please ask your question.
Thank you, Ankita. So my question is like, people say that if you have like new ideas or business plans, you can start your startup. But what are the requirements you need to fulfill to start a startup?
Vikram, you want to take that? I've spoken enough.
No, I think the first and the foremost thing is you need to make sure that the idea that you have, you're actually solving a problem. You just can't think of just any other idea. You actually have to be solving a problem which is out there. And the problem that you're solving, then many times we fall in love with the solution that we create and then try to look for a problem for that. So it's very important to go and validate in the market whether that's actually a problem, because in fact some of these reports which I've seen, they've quoted the largest reason for startup failure, and I was quite amazed to see that the number one reason for failure is that what the entrepreneurs were building was not even required in the market. So that's what typically ends up happening. Don't just fall in love with the idea that you have and just start doing it from day one. Just validate it. And to validate it, that's where you need mentors and do some research in the market. And then you need to have a very, a good team to begin with. Look for a co-founder. If you can pitch your idea to someone who can join you early on, and has a similar vision aligned to you, that solves quite substantial part of your problem. So I think get a person along with you, or maybe a set of people who actually bring complementary skills to what you have. So that actually helps solve these things much faster. So these are some of the things that you need to do.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Yugender, I would request you to please unmute yourself and ask your question.
Yes, thank you. Hello, panelist. I'm Yuganda here. So I have one question. What is entrepreneurial hacks or tricks you have developed to stay focused and productive in your day-to-day business?
Vivek, you should take this.
I think it is the speed of your action. If there's an idea, see, JCB is one of our customers in Pune, and when I'd gone to visit them, there was something mentioned about the founder. He's saying there is no dearth of intelligent people in the world, but what difference between a intelligent person and a successful person is his time it takes to translate his idea into reality. So I think to stay focused and to be successful is you have to develop that speed of from thought to action. So if an idea comes to your mind, immediately pen it down, or if you need to assign it to somebody or some action needs to be taken, immediately send a text message, immediately send a mail message, pick up the phone, talk to the person, be it a customer, be it an employee, be it a vendor. So I think, what differentiates and what makes a successful entrepreneur is the speed at which you are able to execute your ideas, and that speed, so for that, but your question is, how to remain focused. So how to remain focused is, if you are passionate, then the focus will come, and the success will come. Post the focus, the success comes with the speed of action. So that has been my personal experience. I'm sure all of us have our own experiences, and I would also request Vikram and Nitin to give their views on this, or their own experiences.
So I find this a very interesting question, growth hacks. And I was in conversation with an entrepreneur who runs a company that offers engineering services. And they work largely with British clients. They have a team in India. And for them, reaching out to British clients is a big challenge, and establishing their credibility is a challenge. So they wanted to find out which are the British companies which are currently working with Indian vendors and buying engineering services for them. So, the logical steps would have been to send somebody to UK, or to establish an office there, or to, talk to a large number of engineering companies in UK and saying, hey guys, we offer this service. So what this entrepreneur did is he actually took a subscription to Naukri, Naukri.com, and he pulled out resumes of about, 300, 400 engineering, basically people who worked in different companies in India that were his competitors. And he studied the resumes in and out. And on the resumes, these applicants had written down all the projects that they had done for British companies and for German companies. So he built a brilliant list of prospective customers, going through 500 resumes on Naukri. So I found that was a fascinating way to find out which British companies are working with Indian vendors. And this is just an example that I'm taking of how you hack growth. I just hope this answers your question.
Saurav, I would request you to unmute yourself and ask your question.
Sir, if I am working in a service sector business, but due to this pandemic, my business has been hampered, but I have to start new business, how to tackle that fear to start new business again? Because I knew that I have suffered from these some conditions. So how to tackle that fear to start a new business?
It's a very interesting question. I think have been very courageous with the fact that you are already an entrepreneur. So I think you have crossed what 99 out of 100 people won't have done it. So I think you've done the difficult part. All of us have suffered during pandemic. Having said that, this is not going to be the end of it. Probably another 3-4 months, and you probably will see the green shoots of recovery back. During this recovery phase, whether your services will be required lesser or higher is, I think, the question that you need to ask. And if the answer is that no, there is going to be disruption, a permanent kind of a disruption, then obviously, what is it that's going to click in the future? I think that's something which you need to think about. So, while my sympathy is with you that you have suffered because of pandemic, I think look at it as an opportunity and just try and think what else is going to click after we open up. And open up, we are going to. I think that's a reality. So look at the brighter side. Most important thing, you are already an entrepreneur. You have done the tough part. Vivek?
Yeah, I would just like to add that, this question was already answered in previously. Is that firstly, you need to get your business idea validated. Okay, so talk to 10 people, 15 people, and just see if it is making business sense. Dhanda hai ke iske andar, to use your word, Anish, to use the same phrase. And also, what Vikram also highlighted is that don't get enamored by your own solution. Get it validated. Just check whether it's going to work in the market or not. Don't just because you thought about it, that does not mean that idea is going to work in the market. And second is, going back to once again what Vikram said, I'll just repeat for benefit of everybody. Find co-believers in your idea. Get 1 or 2 people, to team up with you. So as a team, translating that idea into reality becomes much more easier. I think these are the 2 things. If you do, I'm sure you'll reach success. And then, as rightly pointed out by Anish, is that you just have just need to see whether during pandemic time is the right time or post-pandemic is the right time. And 2-3 months is not a long time. I think Vikram wants to say something.
I just want to add just one point, and I think I have rarely seen entrepreneurs who've been successful that they've not failed before. Never be scared of failure, and in fact, you should take every failure as an opportunity to learn. Go back and understand why you failed and what went wrong. And I can tell you that the kind of lessons you will learn from there will give you even more confidence to go back and start something new. So that's what I just wanted to add to what he said.
Thank you, sir.
Rishikesh, I would request you to unmute yourself and please ask your question.
Thank you, Ankita. So my question is, what key activities would you recommend entrepreneurs to invest their time in?
I think I think all entrepreneurship start with an idea. So if you have ideas, in your mind, what to do, then you will actually be short of time. You will not have this question to, whether, how do I invest time or what do I do with my time? So, I think it all starts with ideation. And, if ideas are not coming to your mind, then meet people, keep on reading, increase your knowledge base, and somewhere something will click. So I think if you want to ask, a simple question would be, gathering more knowledge, talking to more people would be the, initial things that you can do to keep, to spend your time in.
Thank you, sir.
Advait, I would request you to unmute yourself and please ask your question.
Sir, my question is extension of Saurabh's question, but from a different perspective. My question is, each and every one of us have different risk-taking ability and patience. But how can we increase risk-taking ability of our teammates and also reduce the fear of failure in them? Many a times it happens that we are confident about our work, but teammates feel that it has more consequences, or they fear consequences more before trying it. So how should we deal with these situations?
I'll take that. I think getting the team right is the most important point before you start off. You may have a 2-member team, you may have a 5-member team, but those team members should be gelling absolutely well. And we've seen plenty of startups actually fail because the team was not able to hold on to it. Because there was diversion of ideas, there was sometimes diversion of risk taking. At the first possible challenge, the team broke off. So I think it's very important that you have thought through an idea well. There is a cohesiveness amongst all of you, and only then take the first step of actually leaving and starting something. Because if the team is not on the same page, trust me, it's a matter of time, you all will fall apart. And that's something which, of course, is not bad, but can be avoided. So get the team right. You may just realize at the end of first few days of discussion that, well, out of 7 people that you discussed, 3 are the core teams that you will need and will stick along with you. Why did Vivek leave with his partner? Because, and today I know that team very well. They've worked as a team. I mean, I call them Jay and Viro of Sholay. Both of them have been fantastic and they cover each other's backs every single day. So I think that's very critical. I mean, simple question. Look at each of your team members and ask a simple question. Would I be having sharing my dinner with the same person after 7, 8, 10 years? I think that will answer a lot of questions.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much.
Gaurav, I request you to unmute yourself and please ask your question.
Yes, Ankita, thank you. So my question is, years back when I was listening to some YouTube motivational videos, I heard this one thing that if you want to be an entrepreneur, then the first question that you should be asking yourself that, would you employ yourself if you were to hire you? This created a doubt within me that does an entrepreneur have to have this know-it-all personality, or is it okay that if you lack in some fields and yet you can do great? How to tackle this confusion?
I think I'll take that first. I follow a person called Roger Hamilton, and he's written a fantastic book on wealth dynamics. And he's now kind of escalated it to entrepreneurial dynamics. So the short answer is, you'll have different types of personalities winning in business. And he defines 8 different types of people, or broadly people with specific attributes. So if you ask Vivek if his partner is a replica of himself, Vivek will say probably no. My partner is very different and he has complementary capabilities to mine. So, again, this book talks about, how someone like Lakshmi Mittal runs his business. The discipline, the regimen, the operational excellence, vis-a-vis someone like, Richard Branson, or someone with a different makeup, who takes decisions which are a bit more intuitive. So the short answer is, there isn't a formula, to say, would you hire yourself? Each one of us is distinct, and each one of us, if we are able to apply ourselves, can win in business. The trick is in what Anish said earlier. If you are able to find complementary capabilities in terms of your team or in terms of your employees to be stitched together, you can develop any business idea into success. Of course, that's one ingredient. But the main point is we are extremely diverse as entrepreneurs, and each one plays to his or her strengths and to his or her music, that is passion.
Thank you, sir.
Gaurav Kamble, I would request you to unmute yourself and please ask your question.
Thank you so much, sir, for all the panelists for such a wonderful session. I would just want to ask, like, which is the perfect time for a new entrepreneur to being in the business? Like, go in the industry, work for some time, because as a management student, we are currently in a position like we can go and start our work in our company. So instead of that, can we start our own setup or go in the industry and take some experience first? What is your suggestion for this?
Can I give my 2 bits on this? And I'm going to be a little crude in this. Yeah, पिछवाड़े में जितना दम है ना, that will actually decide what is the time. There is no time, boss. There is no time. Time is today. Time is tomorrow. Whatever time is convenient that you think that is right. Most important, run through your idea through few people to know whether the idea is workable or not. And there is no good or bad time, boss. Okay, I'll give you a simple example. I was having dinner a few years back with Li Ka-shing in Hong Kong. Li Ka-shing is Hutchinson Whampoa Group Chairman, and he gave a classic example which I'll never ever forget. Now, if you look at the Hutchinson Group, it was in telecom, it's in trading, it's in it's in real estate, and Asia is one of the richest men. He said all richest Chinese in the world are first toy makers. And I was stunned. He said, yeah. He said, I am a toy maker till today. So all of them realized that making toys is a great business 25 years back. Till today they are making toys. But they have gone on and done other things also. So Li Ka-shing didn't wait. Okay, why should I wait for something to... They saw an opportunity. They became a global sourcing base for toys across the world. And all of them became billionaires. Then they went on and diversified themselves in various fields. So there is nothing called timing, boss. Timing aaj hai, boss. India is at the cusp of a very, very big inflection. We had a 1992 inflection, and probably I would term, in my opinion, that 2021 is another inflection in the history of the nation. And trust me, if you study the history of nations across in the world, each nation has 3 or 4 inflection points if they are really lucky. I think India is at the second inflection point now. The time is now. I would leave it at that. I don't know, Vikram, you would like to add, or anyone else would like to add?
No, totally agree with you, Anish. I think very well said. Absolutely. So I don't have anything to add to that.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you to all the panelists. As we see there are no more questions, we would like to move towards vote of thanks. I would request my colleague Diganta to present vote of thanks.
Yes, thank you, Ankita. It's my honor and privilege to offer a vote of thanks in this occasion. I, Diganto Chakraborty, on behalf of Deccan Education Society, IMDR, would like to convey my sincere gratitude to all the speakers comprising Mr. Vivek R. Kele, Mr. Anish Javeri, Mr. Vikram Gupta, and Mr. Nitin Pangam for sharing their graceful words with us in today's meeting and enlightening us on the topic of entrepreneurship and startup management. It has been our tribute to host all the members of the panel discussion, and a special thanks to all the participants. Some of the notable highlights of today's meeting ought to include the introductory point by Nitin sir about the favorable ecosystem that is thriving currently for budding entrepreneurs, since there is ample optimism in the environment coupled with a positive government assistance, which amplifies the opportunity. Anish Javeri sir also asserted that there are possibilities for an entrepreneur beyond the requirement of an adequate capital, since worthy ideas are always complemented, and he explained it with the success story of Zerodha, which exemplified his point. He also added that one needs to comprehend the scale of opportunities and capitalize on it. Vikram sir picked up the point of networking, and he emphasized on the necessity of building relationships since it helps in discovering suitable mindsets that aids in propelling one's professional journey. So thank you, sir. Commenting and complimenting on his view, Mr. Vivek sir's view, Mr. Vivek sir also mentioned the need of becoming a reference point of one's customer as it helps in the flow of the business development process. Lastly, he brought another familiar yet vital point of believing in oneself and keeping a growth hacking attitude since it helps in one's professional journey. He also mentioned that there is no barrier in terms of one's age to enter the field of entrepreneurship as long as one is mentally prepared for it. These pieces of information are really helpful and valuable for us in our future corporate endeavor. So thank you once again to all the panelists. Thank you, sir.